I saw Barbarian.
Yeah, okay. We can do a quick segment here on Barbarian.
So I think our opinions are very different of the film, but this was one of the horror movies that I watched this year that I actually felt like claustrophobic and scared of. Like there were moments where I did not know what was going to happen, and I actually like the fear of the unknown actually kind of crept up on me in this movie, which has not happened in a very long time.
Well, that's fair. I mean, in terms of like a movie being put together on a technical level, they did everything they needed to do with like, lighting and camera work. And,
Oh yeah.
As you and I have discussed, I actually thought it was kind of lame. I was not that impressed by it. I was surprised that was the movie everybody was hyping up.
I didn't even know there was hype about it.
Oh, it's huge hype. It's everywhere. Everyone's like, oh, it's the best horror movie I've seen in years. And I'm like, I didn't really enjoy it
Have they not
much.
seen Halloween Ends?
Yeah.
No, so I mean, the movie starts with a.
Yeah, we'll do. Obviously spoilers for everything we talk about, but.
But yeah, so I had no idea what was happening in this movie. I hadn't read any hype.
Yeah.
I hadn't read anything. I hadn't seen any trailers. I just knew that Justin Long was in it, and it was a horror movie. That's all I knew about it. So I start watching it, and it's about this girl in the rain arriving to this house, and it's an Airbnb, and it's double booked. Mm-hmm. And in my brain, I'm like, is it double booked? And they kind of go through this, and they run through all these scenarios where, you're not, like, the bedroom door opens at one point. The guy, like, kind of lures her into this conversation, and you're not sure whether he's, like, honeypotting her or what. And she's very nervous around this man, and rightfully so.
All right.
She's in the middle of a very unfamiliar place, and she is not sure who this man is or if he should be there.
I have a counterpoint to that, because what you think is, all right, so the tension obviously between how did they end up here, he does the thing where he tries to make her tea, she won't drink it, so he waits to open the wine in case she wants some, that way, so that's good. But that, as to saying, like, when the door opens slowly, she walks out, the door behind her in the hallway closes, he's asleep on the couch still having a nightmare. So at that point, the tension of like, oh, what's this guy's involvement for me, instantly gone.
But for me, she goes downstairs, the door closes behind her.
Right.
And then she's like exploring this place,
but there's a reason.
And she goes up and tells him, and he goes back down and doesn't come back. And at that time, I'm like, maybe he's working with the person downstairs. Maybe he was. Maybe the key was still in the.
Yeah.
Because he. And so like I still had doubts about this guy. And then when he goes downstairs and she's like crawling through all this stuff, I was so freaked out when she is going through these tunnel systems. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what's going on, but there are noises, there are flashes of images, and I was just like, what the hell is happening? And then when the thing occurred, mm-hmm. when the big reveal occurred, I was like, ah! Like I have not felt tension on any of the other 30 horror movies I watched this year, but that one I felt tension.
I don't know. I like I said, when they did like the one door and she's walking out and the door behind her closes, all my tension was gone, because I'm like, this guy's involvement now is none, right? He's just also happens to be caught up in this thing.
But as someone who watches movies, were you sure about that?
I was pretty sure of it. You know what? Because I knew there was we hadn't seen Justin Long yet, so I was like, something's gonna happen here.
I thought Justin Long was gonna be like the murderer in the cave, and he was gonna be the barbarian.
I thought he was just gonna be trapped in the basement, and so like I thought there was gonna be like a bunch of them, like, how do we get out of here, kind of thing.
See, I thought maybe Justin Long would like be a psycho killer living in the basement.
No, so I didn't have that much suspense at that point.
Yeah, fair enough.
The timeline on it for me is a little wonky as well, because it's like, there's like a clone of it was like, that's a copy of a copy. She's been
right. No, that didn't.
I was like, if she's been in there 40 years, that means then she's at least 40.
10,
right?
10. She's the fourth one at most.
Yeah, it's like there's no way that in that short amount of time you're getting this genetic. Like if there had been like, oh yeah, no, this has been like they shouldn't have used a real place like Detroit. They should have just used a fake town or something like that, so that way, because we're aware of the timeline of the fall of Detroit. We are aware how Detroit kind of collapsed from like the 50s forward. So
I was fine with being Detroit.
Well, but it throws off the timeline, because the guy's running around in like the 50s, and he's like, so there's like 70 years later then he's alive at this point, depending on when the movie takes place, right? Because it must have been the 50s, 60s. Even if let's say he's that old in the 80s, and we're adding another 40 years to him to put him at what? Like in his late 80s? So if it's only a 40 year, then that's a baby he had recently. if you wanted to say, but
Right.
I'm pretty
No,
sure it was
it
like
doesn't.
56. Timeline doesn't
That
add
part
up.
of it doesn't add up. The monster was cool itself, but the way that
Felt
it
very
was,
Resident Evil, like from the games.
it did, which I was fine with.
Like Lisa Trevor from Resident Evil
I
felt
don't know
very
what
much
that
like
is.
that. Yeah, to me, that's how it felt.
But its motivation was creepy as hell.
It just wanted a baby. Yeah.
Well, it wanted to feed the
Yeah.
baby.
That was the only VHS type it had.
Breastfeeding a baby.
So I have a couple problems with this movie. First of all, you and I were discussing, I think it would have been more, I would have found it more suspenseful if they had started with the Justin Long story first, where he goes in and it's like, were people staying here? What the hell? Like nobody, it's like calls, it's like nobody's been there for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And he's like, why are there things still here? And then it's like a girl's thing and like a guy's thing. And he's like, this is weird. And I think there would have been more time. Like, ooh, I wonder what happened to those two, right? It's like a guy and a girl are both missing. I find more tension in that.
Okay, that could have worked as long as you don't get to the part where he's being trapped and then cut back. I don't think if you go that far, you've lost attention for me.
I think if you get to the part where he falls into the pit and she goes, shh, and then you cut to her story, so we know at least the girl's around, and then you introduce another guy, and it's like, is the guy the thing that's chasing? Because does the guy have a connection to the thing chasing him? Because why is he missing? So it's either he's dead or he's part of it. And so then with his death being the thing that actually sent the movie from her story to Justin Long's story, that could have been a good time then to jump straight back into the full-on horror thing without having too much of a change in pace and narrative structure.
Yeah, that actually, I think that would have been good.
And then,
but at the same time,
the other thing real quick that I just wanted to say, they were talking about him having all these babies and there's only one monster running around. I thought for sure what was going to happen is that tunnel system, because they're like afraid of the light, there's going to be a whole bunch of these things, and because they can't go out in the light without it hurting them, they dug their tunnel system to connect them to all the other dilapidated houses. And I thought that was going to be like a colony thing. And those are my two things. They should have been a colony of these creatures. And I personally would have preferred to start with Justin Long, have the tension of where are these two missing people, and then as we're seeing the story of the two missing people, we know it doesn't end well for at least the girl.
Yeah, no, I think that I think that narrative structure actually would have worked. I think you're, I think it's true. But I mean, I didn't have a problem with the narrative structure because I just felt all that tension from the start, and I was intrigued as to what happens next the whole time, which is rare. Like, yeah. Right, like, 'cause I watched Hellraiser, the new one.
Oh, I have not.
It was. Okay, so I just want to clarify one thing. The old Hellraiser is the one where the guy dies and is coming back. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he has to collect, and they have to kill to get flesh.
Right. So that one was so creepy.
Yes, it was.
And like that has the tension that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that those late 80s horror movies kind of has this one feeling where it's just like the world is so, it feels emptier in them. Like whereas in this new, like, it kind of feels empty, like dark. Like even when they're out in a bar, it still kind of feels empty.
All right.
Because they're like bringing people back, and I think it's because they had a more closed casting system and didn't really film on the streets. Whereas nowadays, like in the new Hellraiser, it kind of feels like that new modern system of movie / horror, which isn't true of all movies nowadays, where there's kind of like 5-6 people and they're like, let's go explore this, like we're banded together by something.
It's a cabin in the woods movie, sort of. It's like, oh, you got a bunch of people and they all need to go to the same place, and once they get to that same place, that's where
sort
things
of
happen.
but they're all connected to this girl who ends up opening the puzzle box.
You open the box.
Yeah, she fucked up. And so like she ends up finding the puzzle box, and then like these people all get connected because one person disappears, and so they're all going after to figure it out, and meanwhile they're all kind of disappearing because of the puzzle box. And so it just doesn't have that tension because it's like, okay, here's like 6 people. You know that 5 of them are going to die. You're not sure what's going to happen to the last one. Okay. But considering it's a modern horror movie, she's either going to escape or she doesn't, and either way, the result's kind of the same.
Right. So I think I see what you're getting at, is that Barbarian keeps the tension by keeping it very small, focused, and intimate, and like limited number of characters. Kind
of like the late 80s movies, like I was saying. Hellraiser felt that way because like it was never a bunch of people trying to figure it out. Yeah. And Candyman. Oh, there's like 3 characters and like 2 or 3 in the block. You see other people in the block.
I understand what you're saying, but it creates that claustrophobic, smaller scale kind of. Yeah,
whereas if it's like, if I make a horror movie and I'm like, here's a group of 6 of us, you know that at least 4 are dying. Yeah. No more than 2 people are making it out. And then usually they make it out and at the end they go, ah!
And then one of them dies. Well, they kind of do that in Barbarian here at the end, where it seems like Probably my favorite part of the movie, and again, we're full on spoilers here, was when the creature does chase them through the streets at night and they end up on the water tower, which was just a dumb idea in the first place.
Yeah, it was.
But then he's like, save your baby, and throws the girl off, and like the creature does. And then he goes over and does the dumbest thing. He's like, I think she's dead. And then just like grabs it, and like the lamest death ever too.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, so bad. But the other problem that I found was so lame with Barbarian is like all that goodwill and tension in the beginning, like I said, kind of goes out the window for me.
No, it does.
And then the Justin Long segment that follows it
Yeah.
is played a little more goofier. Like when he finds like the clearly like the rape room, like it's like he's like, whoa, extra square footage. Whoa, look at this. I get to
Well, I
measure.
mean, he's not fazed by rape.
I know, exactly. and I understand that, but it
Yeah.
was like cartoonish. And then he's like, oh my God, I get to put all this square footage. And I was like, oh, come on.
It's
man.
okay but I mean, in a lot of horror movies, you do kind of want somebody to break up the tension.
Right,
at some
but
point.
that's why I say it would have worked better in the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie. And so then they could have started goofy and then had more tension as it went on.
But I thought it was a solid 6 or 7, honestly. I don't.
Speaking of
if-
things
if
having a
I-
hard time getting through doors.
If I'd heard that it had all that hype before I watched it,
Oh, yeah, people
I would have
loved
been
it.
disappointed. But I didn't hear anything about it until.
Ghoul incoming! Another ghoul incoming!
Much more ghastly one.
So, yeah, no, it's just, and then, what were we talking about before we were distracted by ghouls?
Just the humor.
Oh,
you know.
yeah, I think it would have worked better at the beginning because then there's like an absurdist quality to it.
Right.
Whereas the beginning of the movie had me really anchored with like the tension and like, and even though I lost a lot of that tension, like I said, when I saw the double door action, I was
Right.
still very invested in like the exploration.
Yeah.
And then to see that what was done so well is like horrific exploration being played as a joke immediately after that, and then go back to horror. I think you can start with the brevity, go horror all the way through. Personally, that's just it for me.
I mean, I do think that part of what got me is dark, claustrophobic areas and solo characters get me more than like I said with Hellraiser, like
Yeah,
a
I
group of people
understand.
trying to explore. If there's like one person and they're in the dark, I'm like, get out of there.
Yeah.
There's something visceral inside me that's like, you need to leave.
Again, though, if I may counter that, when you only have one character and you know you still have an hour left of the movie, I'm slightly less afraid of their well-being. You know, I'm less concerned for their
That
well-being.
is true. It's just my lizard brain going, get out.
But it is something visceral about it. But it's like me as an audience member. Sometimes I'm like, this is cool and all, but I'm not hooked. Like,
Right, I'm watching some crime show, and the guy's like, "I'm going in to find the killer." It's like, yeah, I know you
okay,
are,
bud.
but I know you're finding the killer.
Yeah. No, and then like, the ending, I just thought the moment he got that gun, I was like, no, he's gonna shoot her. Like, and then they don't even wait. Like, I think it's like 40 seconds later he shoots her. So at least I was like, but why? Because she needs to be hobbled so that way he can be like, I know this is a wounded woman, and that's why I'm sacrificing her. But like, he's like, if only one of us can survive, it should probably be the one who's guaranteed to make it to town without bleeding out. And then of course he does the save your baby thing, which was awesome. But it's just,
that was.
but it's just like.
I was so mad at him in that moment. I was like, no,
I
you
was so
dick.
mad at him. Like, you're not supposed to like him, and he does an admirable job of kind of being a dick the whole movie.
I kept
Like,
thinking he was gonna like redeem himself in some way.
I did too, because we're so conditioned to like for
Yeah.
like redemption, forgiveness. But like he's a bad, and like when he keeps talking about like the alleged rape victim, he keeps calling her that bitch. Like, and then he says it every time he mentions her name.
And not
it's-
the alleged rape victim, the woman that he allegedly raped.
Is that what I said?
No, you said alleged rape victim. I just want to clarify
Oh, I got it.
that she's not just a random alleged
Yeah,
rape
no,
victim.
no. This was
She's
a co-
his alleged rape victim.
And it was he was a director and she was an actress, and so the power dynamics, you know, they're taking their shot at Hollywood.
And also he made it very clear that he did.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, she was saying no,
Yeah,
but like
then she
eventually
said, yeah,
didn't.
yeah, eventually she said, yeah, I know. That's what he tells his buddy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad I didn't. I saw it on HBO Max. I'll say I'm glad I saw it on HBO Max. I had sat down because I was excited for it, and you know, I sat there because when it's like a movie I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I won't have beer or anything when I sit down for it because I don't want to be like, did I miss a detail? Or like I get a little nervous that like
Right.
I may, in the process of like having like a libation, like, did I miss something subtle? And then when I go to talk about it, I sound like an idiot. I'm going to miss things and sound like an idiot anyway. Yeah. My court date! No. But So as I sat there, I was like, oh my God, I think I would like much rather prefer to have like beer and pretzels as I watch this movie. I didn't, because once I sit down, it's very difficult to get me back up out of the chair. I'm like, I'm too comfy now.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a little too long too. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. I think I was surprised that if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I'm surprised that was the movie everybody was so hyped about, because I found it to be very, very mediocre, technically proficient, great creature design, but just kind of, I don't know. There's too many things. Like, isn't in the room with like the TV, aren't those all like, were they like women's jackets that she had turned into a nest? Or something like that?
I don't know.
Was it clothing? Because if it was clothing, that's a lot of victims they've implied.
Yeah.
And
well, she does come out at night.
it's true. But there's no one left in Detroit.
She only comes out at night.
You know what they say? Yeah, next time when people ask you where you're from, say Detroit City.
Rock City.
When it's getting back on its feet. Some of the Detroiters by Tim Robinson.
Oh, but I thought it was good. I thought it was good horror. It's okay that we disagree.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. One of our more civil discourses, if you can believe it.
Shut up.
Yeah, you're right. This isn't going to make it into it, but seeing as we're talking anyways, I've already ended the video. But you know what really, like, even though they go through such the melodical thing of like her being like, okay, I guess I'll stay here. Like she goes through all those steps. I'm like, just drive away. Drive into the city and sleep in a parking garage. That's such a safer option than this.
No,
like,
that's what I was thinking a lot of the time too. I was like, no.
Yeah, there's just no...
Well, I'm always telling horror characters to get out. I'm like, get out of there.
Serious.
You're so dumb.
Yeah.
Don't explore it. He disappeared. You leave.
Mm-hmm.
He disappeared. You leave.
He came back.
Briefly.
Yeah, because he gets her out of the basement, and then he goes down and then dies.
Well, I meant that other time he disappeared.
Oh yeah, no,
That time.
yeah. It's like, yeah, you just nope right on out of that shit. It's not worth it.
Nope. It's funny because as I've been watching horror movies, I've noticed like 10 different times the character goes, nope.
Yeah.
Like not even recent horror movies, just
No,
like
it's
random horror movies. A character going, nope.
Nope. Yeah, Get Out and Nope are appropriately named movies. And
Yeah.
like Jordan Peele's onto something.